a physical standpoint, you could argue that nobody has ever looked more ideal inside the squared circle. Brock Lesnar is the living embodiment of pro wrestling perfected, combining ultra peak physicality with masterful technique and a performer's flair that puts him many cuts above the rest of the heavyweight din. And yet, because he apparently doesn't view wrestling with the same starry-eyed wonderment that we all do, he and his greatly reduced work schedule are scorned by many fans. Whatever your feelings are on Lesnar, he's had a career and a body of work like few others have throughout the history of the industry, and there has never been a wrestler of the exact caliber of the Beast incarnate. I'm Jack from Cultaholic.com, and this is the captivating career of Brock Lesnar. After a successful career as an amateur wrestler, culminating with winning the NCAA Division I heavyweight title in 2000, Lesnar was recruited to WWE and given a hefty downside guarantee in order to train at Ohio Valley Wrestling. While in OVW, Lesnar won 3 Southern Tag Team titles alongside Shelton Benjamin, who just so happened to be one of his former coaches at the University of Minnesota. Within 6 months of his debut match, Lesnar worked house show bouts and dark matches on the main roster, and by early 2002 was working more regularly at live events with veterans such as Perry Saturn, Mr. Perfect, and Lance Storm, among others. The night after WrestleMania 18 in 2002, Lesnar made his main roster debut, hitting the ring during a hardcore title scrum on Monday Night Raw. With a returning Paul Heyman shouting instructions to him, Lesnar tore through Maven, Al Snow, and Spike Dudley in a demonstration of his Terminator-like presence. The random beatings continued over the next few shows, and at the 2002 brand extension draft, Raw GM Ric Flair selected the 24-year-old prodigy to his show. His first televised match came at Backlash 2002, where he beat Jeff Hardy unconscious, winning the match via TKO. Straight away, Lesnar was presented as a destructive force akin to Goldberg, whose name was occasionally chanted by WWE fans towards Brock. Barely 3 months into his WWE run, Lesnar earned his first accolade, the King of the Ring. After beating Bubba Ray Dudley in a qualifying bout, Lesnar went on to beat Booker T in the quarterfinals, en route to taking down Test and Rob Van Dam in succession the night of the namesake pay-per-view. The tournament win earned him a shot at the WWE Championship at SummerSlam, but for the time being, he focused on RVD's IC title. At the Vengeance pay-per-view that July, Van Dam defeated Lesnar, by disqualification, to retain his title, but Lesnar's record remained otherwise spotless. The Rock became WWE Champion for the 7th time at this point, setting the two larger-than-life athletes on a collision course for SummerSlam. The build to this match highlighted each man's training in video form, showing Lesnar to be an absolute freak as he jogged while carrying an uprooted tree, while also taking a post-workout ice bath in which he submerged almost his entire body in freezing water. The SummerSlam match was, for all intents and purposes, a passing of the torch, as Lesnar put down The Rock clean as a sheet to become the youngest WWE champion in history at barely 25 years of age. After SummerSlam, Lesnar moved over to SmackDown with the title, making the belt exclusive to the brand. It was here that he entered into a feud with The Undertaker, and the two fought to a non-finish at the Unforgiven pay-per-view. After some soap opera elements involving Undertaker's then-wife Sarah were injected into the storyline, Lesnar and the Deadman threw all of that aside in favour of some good old-fashioned brutality at October's No Mercy. In what will go down as one of the greatest and bloodiest Hell in a Cell matches of all time, Lesnar outlasted The Undertaker, reversing a tombstone into the F5 for the win. By this point, Lesnar's popularity was understandably soaring, and the decision was made to turn him babyface. To achieve this turn, WWE controversially booked Lesnar to lose the title at Survivor Series inside Madison Square Garden. He lost to The Big Show after manager Paul Heyman double-crossed his prodigy. Heyman also covertly added a clause to the match that denied Lesnar a chance at a rematch. So the next big thing helped Kurt Angle defeat Show for the belt at Armageddon that December. But Angle, who had promised Lesnar a shot if he won, took Heyman on as his manager and denied Brock his chance, using Show and the world's greatest tag team Shelton Benjamin and Charlie Haas to ward Lesnar off. Lesnar found his workaround at the 2003 Royal Rumble, where he defeated Big Show in a qualifying match the night of, before going on to win the Rumble itself, last eliminating The Undertaker. This made Lesnar the only man to win a King of the Ring tournament, a Royal Rumble match, and the WWE title, each within 1 year of their main roster debut. The chase was on for WrestleMania 19 as Lesnar got the title shot at his fellow amateur wrestling legend. The match match turned out to be a bit of a wrestling masterpiece, though one that almost ended tragically as Lesnar came up short on the planned shooting star press finish, spiking his head into the canvas. Despite the concussion that came with it, Lesnar managed to win via the F5. His next major challenger came in the form of a fellow OVW graduate that possessed tons of upside. The freestyling Cena was fed to Lesnar at the Backlash pay-per-view before Lesnar moved on to a familiar grudge, The Big Show. But it wasn't the last time that Lesnar and Cena would cross paths. Back to The Big Show now, and the 500-pounder battled Lesnar for the title 3 weeks later at Judgment Day in a stretcher match, with Lesnar retaining the belt. A more famous match between the two took place on an episode of SmackDown that June, in which neither man won. That was because Lesnar superplexed his quarter-ton opponent, causing the ring to collapse in a very memorable scene. Lesnar dropped the title at July's Vengeance pay-per-view, back to a now babyface Angle in a triple threat match, leading to Lesnar turning heel once more and aligning with Vince McMahon. Despite Vince's best efforts, Lesnar failed to regain the title from Angle at SummerSlam, and so Brock subsequently brutalized the other members of the roster, including Zach Gowen on several occasions, before scoring one more shot at Angle, this time in an Iron Man match on SmackDown. Although Angle came on strong at the end and had Lesnar ensnared in an ankle lock with the time ticking down, Brock held on to win the match 5 falls to 4, winning the belt for the 3rd time. It's still regarded as one of the best matches in SmackDown history. Lesnar barreled his way through the remainder of 2003, turning back challenges from The Undertaker and Chris Benoit before decimating Hardcore Holly. He then dropped the belt to emotional fan favourite Eddie Guerrero at No Way Out as he settled into a rivalry with virtual doppelganger Goldberg, except Goldberg didn't have hair and was a bit older, but they're both really big lads. But Lesnar was fed up with the WWE travel schedule and had problems with Vicodin and alcohol that he'd resorted to in order to manage his constant pain. 2 weeks before his showdown with Goldberg at WrestleMania 20, Lesnar announced that he was quitting WWE. Brock finished his run at the big event, losing to the also departing Goldberg in a match booed mercilessly out of Madison Square Garden. He went on to try professional football, signing on with the Minnesota Vikings that July and appearing that summer in several preseason games with the team. However, Lesnar was released by the Vikings shortly before the final round of roster cuts just a month later. The following year, Lesnar joined up with New Japan Pro Wrestling, winning the IWGP Heavyweight title at the Tokyo Dome in his debut match, a triple threat over champion Kazuyuki Fujita and fellow opponent Masahiro Chono. Lesnar only officially defended the belt twice, against Akibono, remember Akibono? And Giant Bernard, the former Albert or A-Train. But he was then stripped of the gold in July 2006. Lesnar maintained the physical belt until losing it to Kurt Angle in a match sanctioned by Antonio Inoki in June 2007. Angle would then lose the belt to Shinsuke Nakamura, and New Japan got their lovely toy back. Around this time as well, Lesnar made his debut in MMA, defeating Min Soo Kim via submission at a K1 event in Los Angeles. That October, Lesnar joined the heavyweight division of the Ultimate Fighting Championship, better known these days as the UFC. He lost his debut fight to Frank Mir the following February via submission, before going on to beat Heath Herring into Raw Hamburger 6 months later. With Herring lying in his wake, Lesnar capped off a whirlwind year that November by beating heavyweight champion Randy Couture into oblivion, capturing the gold via second round TKO. 11 months later at UFC's 100th pay-per-view, Lesnar avenged the earlier loss to Muir by beating him bloody in a rematch. That title fight set the then UFC record of 1.6 million pay-per-view buys, which stood for more than 7 years. His next bout, a title defense against the undefeated Shane Carwin, was postponed due to Lesnar suffering from diverticulitis. Finally, they clashed in July 2010 at UFC 116, and after weathering an early flurry from Carwin, Lesnar roared back, tapping Carwin out to an arm triangle choke for the win. A little more than 3 months later, Lesnar dropped the title to Cain Velasquez at UFC 121. Losing via first round TKO. A fight with Junior Dos Santos was cancelled due to further issues with diverticulitis, and Lesnar didn't fight again until the tail end of 2011, where he lost via TKO to Alistair Overeem. Lesnar retired from MMA after that fight, and 3 months later, on the post-WrestleMania 28 episode of Raw, John Cena called out The Rock in a show-closing angle, only to be met by a returning Lesnar, to an incredible crowd reaction. Brock hit the ring and proceeded to give Cena an F5 before, quite hilariously, kicking his hat. Brock's first WWE match in 8 years came at the 2012 Extreme Rules pay-per-view, where he lost to Cena in a gory no-holds-barred match that ignored the established PG guidelines. He then ran afoul of Triple H after WWE's COO refused to cede to his contractual demands. This led to Lesnar breaking his boss's arm with a Kimura lock during an episode of Raw. Eventually, a healed-up Triple H challenged Lesnar to a match at the 2012 SummerSlam, which Lesnar won after once again breaking Helmsley's arm. Triple H won a subsequent rematch at WrestleMania 29, but Lesnar took the rubber match inside a steel cage at Extreme Rules. Later that summer, Lesnar attacked fellow Paul Heyman client CM Punk, and Heyman himself double-crossed Punk at Money in the Bank in July. This set up the battle of the Beast versus the Best for SummerSlam, a no DQ match which Lesnar narrowly won. After a few months away, Lesnar turned up at the end of 2013 to try and insert himself into the WWE title picture. He ended up confronted by Mark Henry, who Lesnar brutalized in beatdowns on back-to-back episodes of Raw. The Big Show then intervened, leading to Lesnar defeating his old nemesis at the 2014 Royal Rumble in a pretty brief match. Soon after, Lesnar crossed paths with another old ghost, The Undertaker, setting up an infamous match at WrestleMania 30 in New Orleans. This led to perhaps the most shocking finish in wrestling history, as Brock Lesnar conquered The Undertaker's legendary and once presumably untouchable WrestleMania win streak with 3 F5s. This stunning result was all Lesnar needed on his resume to get back into the title picture. Come SummerSlam 2014, Lesnar pulverized champion John Cena to the tune of more than a dozen German suplexes, winning an incredibly one-sided match to capture his first WWE Championship in over 10 years. After losing to Cena on a DQ finish the following month at Night of Champions, Lesnar disappeared from WWE altogether, his lighter schedule leaving the company without a world champion for long stretches of time. He retained the gold in a triple threat match against John Cena and Seth Rollins at the 2015 Royal Rumble, the same night that Roman Reigns won the event's 30-man gauntlet. Lesnar was therefore challenged by Reigns at WrestleMania 31, though the hard-hitting, blood-soaked brawl was intruded upon by the briefcase-toting Seth Rollins. Lesnar lost his title without being pinned, as Rollins curb-stomped former Shield ally Roman to capture the WWE Championship in a very dramatic finale. The next night on Raw, Rollins denied Lesnar a rematch, and an irate Beast took his anger out on the ringside crew. Poor guys. He crushed Booker T and JBL beneath the commentary desk before turning himself accidentally a little bit babyface by depositing Michael Cole inside the ring with an F5. After a period of kayfabe suspension for his actions, Lesnar returned at a special Beast in the East event in Tokyo, Japan, defeating Kofi Kingston in a pretty short match, but not that short a match. Lesnar then challenged for Rollins' belt at Battleground later that month, and did have the match all but won, but was suddenly attacked by a vengeful Undertaker. Lesnar lost to Taker in controversial fashion at SummerSlam 2015, but came back to beat him in a violent Hell in a Cell match 2 months later, coming 13 years after their transcendent brawl at No Mercy. Lesnar was unable to figure back into the WWE title picture at this stage, but did score a lopsided win over Dean Ambrose in a rather tame street fight at WrestleMania 32. He returned to UFC that summer for what turned out to be a one-off fight, defeating veteran slugger Mark Hunt via a decision. However, the result was later thrown out after it was found that Brock had failed a drug test. The following month, back in WWE, he defeated Randy Orton at SummerSlam 2016 via stoppage after Orton lost a disquieting amount of blood following some unpulled Lesnar elbows. On Lesnar's behalf, Heyman challenged old foe Goldberg to a match at the 2016 Survivor Series. Lesnar apparently didn't take this match seriously, as the still powerful Goldberg mowed him down in just over 90 seconds in something of a huge upset. The inability to beat Goldberg continued to haunt Lesnar until he was able to beat him for the Universal title at WrestleMania 33 after a very entertaining but short 5-minute match. Samoa Joe, Braun Strowman, Roman Reigns, and AJ Styles all fell to Lesnar in subsequent matches through the end of 2017, before Lesnar battered Roman in the main event of WrestleMania 34 to retain the gold. And by this point, Lesnar had reigned as champion for just over 1 year. After surviving a subsequent cage match against Reigns at the Greatest Royal Rumble, Lesnar was set to face him once more at SummerSlam. As part of the angle, Lesnar made clear his disdain for WWE and its fans, which didn't exactly swing the crowd behind Reigns as intended. Nonetheless, Roman defeated Lesnar for the title at SummerSlam 2018, ending Lesnar's monster reign at a staggering 504 days. He wasn't without the gold for too long, however, under very unfortunate circumstances. Roman Reigns vacated the belt 2 months later after revealing a reoccurrence of leukemia, and Lesnar went on to beat Strowman for the held-up title at Crown Jewel. After winning subsequent bouts over Daniel Bryan and Finn Balor, Lesnar lost the belt to Seth Rollins in the opening match of WrestleMania 35, falling victim to a low blow and the spamming of curb stomps. Lots of curb stomps. Lesnar found a way into a guaranteed rematch after somehow winning a Money in the Bank ladder match that he wasn't even in, treating it as a makeshift boombox for a little while, and then cashing it in on an exhausted Rollins at Extreme Rules to regain his belt. This reign lasted only 28 days though, as Seth Rollins won it back in the main event of the 2019 SummerSlam. As for Lesnar's recent history, it went like this: squash WWE champion Kofi Kingston in galling and frustrating fashion, retain the belt over old UFC rival Cain Velasquez at Crown Jewel, and then win a virtual handicap match over Rey Mysterio and his son Dominic at Survivor Series. And the Lesnar we see for the foreseeable future is the man we've known for the last 8 years or so. Show up occasionally, build up a big match, have said match, go away for a while, and then repeat. Don't put that on a t-shirt, it's not as catchy as his usual slogan. Some lament the booking of Brock Lesnar, while optimists appreciate him when he's at his best. And when he's in the zone, Brock Lesnar is the epitome of a monster heel. The impossible final boss who overpowers foes with brute strength and a shark-like grin, mixing in just enough awing athleticism to remind us just why he's on another level. Brock Lesnar was one of a kind when WWE signed him 20 years ago, and he's still one of a kind today. Like him or not, there is no wrestler, perhaps ever, that can equal Brock Lesnar's capabilities or his achievements. Thanks very much for watching, and let us know what you think in the comments section down below. You can follow Cultaholic on Twitter at Cultaholic and on Facebook at facebook.com/Cultaholic. If you enjoy what we do, then please do check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Cultaholic, where you can pledge. And don't forget, of course, most importantly of all, to hit subscribe and to join us.